Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user Thoraray Purple Banana. My husband's 36 male, a fair daughter, 5 female, was dropped off at our house 2 weeks ago and it's causing issues in our marriage. Is there any way to salvage this? My 34 female life is falling apart and it's all thanks to my husband. We had a perfect life. Both of us worked in the jobs we loved and we have a beautiful daughter, 10 female, and a healthy son, 5 male. When I was pregnant with our son, we both almost passed due to complications. So before the birth and even afterward, I didn't want to have sex. Why would I? I almost died and my body was in pain for months afterward, even with strong medication. I thought my husband understood because he never pushed me for sex or even asked. I thought it was because he understood my pain, but apparently he was just getting it from somewhere else. Now, a few months ago, we were visited by Child Protective Services. I was terrified at first, frantically thinking of what we did wrong with our children to cause a visit. But no, as it turns out, some woman I've never met before died in a car accident, leaving behind a daughter, and my husband's name was on the girl's birth certificate, and he was named in the woman's will as the father. I thought it was a mistake at first until my husband told me the truth. As it turns out, while I was suffering my pregnancy and the after effects of almost dying, my husband would go to a woman he knew at work and get it off with her. He said this as if he did me a favor. As the CPS worker explained to us, my husband is her closest living relative who can care for her. The other woman's family apparently wanted nothing to do with the poor little girl. When she asked us if we wanted to take her in, I said yes. Yes, I know this might be the true cause of all my issues, but my husband pawned that girl off to live with her single mother for 5 years. He doesn't get to pawn her away when she needs help. She's his responsibility, and now it's ours. I told him I'd help take care of the necessary visits for wellness check and help with whatever CPS wanted us to do. All he had to do was explain everything to our children. The fact I'm saying this tells you what he did. Yes, nothing. We had to clean out a room, buy new furniture, and even look for some toys. Our children go to a private school, so I picked up some more hours in order to be able to afford her tuition. I was the one who had to tell our extended families the big change because he didn't want to do so. I did almost all the heavy lifting. So, color me shocked when his daughter finally joined our family 2 weeks ago. The first words out of our children's mouths were, "Who's that?" Yes, I was the one who had to tell our children's school, extended families, family doctor, and my workplace about my husband's affair and subsequent addition to our family. But he couldn't tell our children because he was too ashamed to face them. So, guess who was the one who had to explain that they have a sister now as I'm trying to settle the poor girl into her new home and room? And it was shocking. Our children didn't take the news well as it was happening right in front of them. My daughter was screaming while crying, causing my son and the little girl to cry. A situation that could have been avoided if my husband had just done the one thing I asked of him and explained everything to them much sooner. It's been 2 weeks since she has been living with us and the situation hasn't improved. My husband has not picked up the slack that comes with having a new addition to the family, so we're struggling right now to make ends meet. I feel embarrassed bringing all 3 children around for appointments and groceries because the little girl is very much obviously not mine, and I can tell people are judging our family. My daughter is much moodier and less happy and refuses to acknowledge our newest addition to the family. Our son doesn't really understand what is going on and it's causing him to lash out. I don't even know how to help the poor little girl because I know that if I feel like my life is falling apart, she must feel even worse. I suggested family therapy, therapy for our children, and even just marriage therapy so we can hopefully move past this and work together as a unit for all the children. He's refused everything, saying that he knows he'll be lectured by everyone when all he was doing was trying to help me. I just don't know how to fix this. Please help me. I don't want to divorce him because I just know that will make it worse for the kids, but that's the only option my family is telling me. Meanwhile, his family is begging me to make this work and just look past it. Well, Opie, the first thing I'm going to say is that you are definitely made of something else. And not in a bad way, I mean that as a compliment. Not many people in this world would have the fortitude to look past the cheating to help that little girl and welcome her in your family. Your husband, on the other hand, is a selfish piece of crap, and that's just to put it lightly because, there's a lot more I could say about him. While you were having a horrible pregnancy that almost took your life, he just needed to have some sex, so he went and had an affair because, he couldn't ask you for it, so he was doing you a favor. What a jackass. Now that he's facing the consequences of his actions, he can't even own up to them because it would be too embarrassing. He didn't want to face his kids, his family, his co-workers. He doesn't want to go to therapy because he knows they're gonna tell him that he's a crap bag. OP, I'm really sorry that you're having to go through this, but if I was in your shoes, I'd do what my family is suggesting. I wouldn't give him a heads up though, he doesn't deserve it. I would prepare everything in the background, ask my family for their support as well, and when the time is right, you serve him with papers. You might think that's not good for your kids, but it would be worse for them to have that kind of role model in their lives. And what do you guys think? How should OP start setting up everything for a divorce? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Orangely Ogre says, tell his family your cowardly piece of crap husband is avoiding everything. He thinks that if he buries his idiotic head into the dirt, everything will resolve itself. Sadly, things are being resolved because he has you. You step up to the plate and handle everything. This allowed him to pass on his responsibilities to you. Tell him choices have consequences, and now he is afraid to get blamed for his choices. If he makes the choice to avoid his duties as a father and husband, then there will be further consequences. You haven't even gone after him for his effing affair. Did the little girl know that your husband is her father? Lastly, you did the right thing. You really do have a huge heart to accept her into your family. I really do hope you find a way to have her fit in and make things work, with or without your husband. Jen5872 says, he was trying to help you? What a crock of horse pucky. Contrary to your husband's opinion, people don't die from a lack of sex because their partner is physically unable to have sex with them. Does he not have working hands? Then he just abandons his kid. What a putz of a husband, a spineless putz, considering he couldn't even bring himself to tell your kids. I don't know how your marriage survives this, especially since he has no remorse because he doesn't think he did anything wrong. And Minute Aioli 5054 says, how do you fix a marriage when the other person wants to do absolutely nothing to address the problems and work on it? He doesn't think he did anything wrong. He hasn't apologized. He cheated on you when you were in such a vulnerable state, and he's not even begging for your forgiveness. Maybe because he knows that you're not going to go anywhere. You don't need to stay in an unhappy marriage for the sake of your kids. They will pick up on it if they haven't already, and it will impact them. You're setting an example for your kids. Would you want them to stay in an unhappy marriage just like you are? Additional information from OP's comments. I know this is pathetic to say, but I really did think he was amazing before all of this. When I gave birth to our daughter, he stepped up to the plate by caring for her and doing housework. He was an attentive father to both of our children before all of this. I was able to tell him I needed to take a break, and he would just step into it and care for them and make sure I could relax. I don't know why he committed such an affair and then tried to excuse himself, and I don't know why he's decided to not care about our children as much as he used to. I guess I just keep hoping that if we all go to therapy and find the root of the issue, we can fix it and go back to how our relationship used to be. Now, reading all these comments, some are sounding just like my family. I guess I was just being naive. Your comments have raised a lot of questions for me that I need to get some answers to now. Also, as much as I hate my husband's actions, I do not hate her enough to abandon her at such a terrible time for her. I agreed to take her into our home, so she is indeed my responsibility as much as my husband's. I didn't say this at first because I didn't know if it was important, but she and my son have gotten really close in such a short amount of time that I would feel heartbroken separating the two of them. Opie's edit. Thank you. I hear you all loud and clear. We will be looking into therapy for me and the children and hopefully a good divorce lawyer. But first, I need to get some answers because some of you are raising some good points. Well, the community agrees that the husband is scum and that OP needs to get away from him as fast as possible. And it sounds like OP is listening. So let's move on to the update to see how the story ends. I'm sorry, you all were right. I was lied to. When all of you were pointing out how the kid's response to the youngest arriving didn't make sense, it made me realize how correct that is. They came home to a room all made up, and I made passing comments to them, asking about how excited they were for the youngest's arrival. They should have known about her. At this point, I decided just to ask my eldest daughter directly because she was still so upset about it, and I subconsciously knew I wasn't going to get the truth from my husband. So I went to her room while she was lying in bed and I asked her. I told her that I asked her father to explain to the two of them what was going to happen. They saw her new room and I talked about her to them, so I didn't understand my eldest's reaction. So yes, it turns out my husband didn't tell them and then me the truth. A surprise to no one, I am figuring out. The story he told the kids was that the youngest was the daughter of one of our friends and we felt so bad we had to take her in. Nothing about her being their half-sister or him having a daughter with another woman. Well, when she came home that day and the kids asked who she was, it was my response to them that ruined his little lie. This is youngest's name. Your half-sister, remember? Side note, in the pictures that we were able to share with our kids of this little girl, she had braids and wore much different clothing than when she arrived. Anyway, our son was too young to really get what it meant, but our daughter did. That's why she freaked out that day, not because of the new addition to the family, but because of what the new addition meant. I apologized for causing her to freak out that day, for not sitting both her and her brother down for a real discussion over how they felt and how to make sure their father did what he was supposed to do. I also apologized for not only talking to her now after she had a much-deserved reaction to it all. My daughter accepted my apology, and I asked her if that was why she was distant from the youngest. She told me that's part of it, and because word got out at her school about what the newest addition to our family going to the school meant. Now she's getting teased and picked on for having a father who cheated. It broke my heart to realize just how badly I messed up. By continuing to beg the spineless man they called a father to help them and then allowing myself to get shut down, I was essentially allowing all the kids' needs to be ignored. I told my daughter I'd signed her and her brother and sister up for therapy. Of course, the pathetic man tried to plead with me not to when I mentioned signing the kids up, but I told him to give it up already. All three children's lives have changed and it will help them adjust with a professional to speak to. He's been grumbling and whining about it, but I don't care anymore. Now, this might cause many to be upset with me, but I'm in the process with my husband to have him transfer custody of the youngest to me. I've grown to care for her, and as some comments in my last post have pointed out, once I do divorce him and leave with our kids, I don't doubt he'll treat her awfully or neglect her. He's been right on board, and it took some convincing, but his parents finally agreed to be witnesses. I got all the paperwork set up and scheduled an appointment with an attorney to help with anything else. Once that happens, I'll try to get everything I need in order to have a smoother divorce and then subsequently move to be closer to my family. Thank you to everyone for giving me a good slap in the face and helping me realize that the children and I deserve better. I was so gullible into thinking a man who cheats on his dying pregnant wife deserves any respect. Well, OP, all things considered, I think this is a positive update. Like I said in my initial commentary, you are made of something else. I think everything that you're doing for this little girl and the fact that you're starting to care for her is admirable. It's good to know that you're preparing custody, and once that's done, you're gonna go for divorce. So on that note, here's wishing you and your 3 kids the best in the future, OP. Thank you for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge, and it's by user Uncle Yuri. Turned to the tables on my ex-wife's attempt to make me back out last minute from coaching children's t-ball. About a year out from divorce, the ex-wife has been acting pretty childish, to say the least. Tries to make me look bad in any attempt she gets. My young son played t-ball last year, and I volunteered to be the coach. Really enjoyed it, but my work responsibilities and schedule changed before this season, and I simply could not commit to doing it again. I became good friends with the guy running the league and let him know before the signups even started as a heads up. I was disappointed, but not much to do. What I was able to do was volunteer to get the fields super early Saturday before the game started and set them up. Chalk line the batters boxes, foul lines, put out bases, etc. 3 fields total, which he was extremely grateful for. A few weeks before the season was supposed to start, they were unfortunately short a couple of coaches and were sending out some desperation emails to all of the parents. My ex knew my situation and apparently thought going into the website and basically fraudulently volunteering me to coach would be a great way to convince me, make me look bad by having to back out, etc. So she did just that. The buddy running the league called me, very confused. In order to register, you have to make a username and password. The username is just your email, so after a few minutes of looking through the registration, we worked out what happened, as her email was in the account name. Ultimately, he decided to put his kid on my son's team and be the coach on top of everything else he was doing. He was pissed at my ex himself though, because this stunt could have set him back from finding a legit coach if they needed to, possibly delaying the league. Here is where I come up with the petty revenge. He sends the official email to all the league's parents with the rosters and coaches for all 10 teams. Except for our kid's team, instead of listing himself, I tell him to list my ex. He puts her name and contact information, etc. and says to expect further information from each coach individually. She emails him back once she notices to point out the mistake, saying it should have been me instead, but he ignores it. He sends her all the clearances coaches need to pass, asks for time she can come to pick up the equipment, the whole 9 yards. After a couple of days, the team's parents apparently started emailing her asking for information on when the season starts, when will practice be, and all that. Eventually, he does reply, playing dumb, telling her she is the one who volunteered as it was her username that registered. He knew it wasn't supposed to be me as he had spoken to me months earlier and knew I wasn't able to do it this year. He put her in an awkward spot because she either had to admit what she did or feign some BS ignorance and claim a miscommunication, which everyone knew was nonsense as we were divorced. After she flat out says she can't coach and she isn't sure what to tell him, he sends out another email to the entire league which says, due to the coach of our kid's team name backing out at the very last minute, I have no choice but to take on coaching the team myself on top of the rest of the responsibilities I have. He continued with, moving forward, we ask that coaches do not volunteer unless they plan on fulfilling that commitment. He didn't mention her by name, but everyone saw the rosters and knew he was talking about her. She texted me a few weeks later once the season started about how my buddy is an a-hole for doing that to her due to a glitch in the registration software, as multiple people have approached and asked her not so nicely what happened, and she knows she is getting looks from people during the games. What a satisfying text it was to receive. Well, OP, it sounds to me like your ex-wife took a crash course on F around and find out, right? Behave like a jerk, that's what you get. Well done, OP. Thanks for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.